and yields back. Mr. Aguilar is recognized.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks to our witnesses for being here, for participating. Let me try to get you're being asked a lot of questions outside of your topic, Mr. Bolton. Let me try to get us back on topic. You talk about in your testimony the 104 recommendations that you provided and where they are within the queue. Specifically, I guess from a top level, what's needed to implement those recommendations? Do we need more time? Do we need more leadership? Do we need a change in policy direction? What do you feel to go from 30 to 50, from 50 to 70, ultimately to get to all 109 recommendations? What's going to be the most effective tool that we can use?
Now, some of the recommendations are long-term. For instance, training. What we're recommending, and what you'll see in our subsequent report, is that an investment in training. It's going to be a large investment. It's going to take the committee's appropriations and also a will for the department to make this type of change. Some of the changes we could still be making now, like I said, in the cultural change, focusing on the type of training that we can do now. We need a system, and we're going to recommend some of these, that any and all training has got to be mission directed. It's got to be set forth of why you're doing that training. In other words, you have a lesson plan, you have objectives, and you have your expected results or outcomes for that training. We just don't do training for the sake of saying, oh, we're doing training. We also need to make sure that training is a continuous form. In other words, we're just going to satisfy the IG and the committee, and we're going to conduct this training X. And as soon as everybody's happy with that, then we're going to go back to not doing the training. So we got to make sure we put into place the policies, procedures, the continuing business practice of conducting that training and making these other changes that are going to be different. Some are long-term, some are short-term, but the department is making some strides, and they have formed some committees within the working groups, I should call them working groups, to address the recommendations.
Do those working groups have deliverables, timetables, milestones that they're under?
That would be something that you would have to ask the chief. I wouldn't be able to set those timetables for them. It's really whatever the chief has set for those folks.
You talked about the chief ultimately being responsible, the training bureau underneath the chief. It seems like within the training category, the most basic thing you can do is to just track who is being trained in what, and you note that there are some deficiencies there. Specifically, did you identify a critical deficiency with the department failing to have a mandatory leadership and development training program?
Well, incidentally, some of the portion we've also entered into a review of career progression and rotational policy for the department. So we'll be having that report to you forthcoming as well within the next month or so. So we are looking into that career progression. That has been an issue, at least what we felt, that you're not training your future leaders. And part of that is not having a rotational policy that is basically non-existent within this department. And we are going to be recommending that they do have a rotational policy.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that would look like? What do you mean by rotational policy?
Whenever you're in any of these special units, whether it be K9, CERT, DPD, Dignitary Protective Division, you cannot have an individual officer spending 15 years out of their 18 years in that particular field. You're doing a disservice to the officer, and you're doing a disservice to the department as a whole, which is the most important thing, is what is best for the department. You need to have that skill set that they have enhanced training, whether it be CERT, K9, DPD, back into the field. One, you have a more experienced, a higher trained level individual back into the field, and you're giving your opportunity for your younger officers to have that opportunity to get into that specialized training. So now you're building a leadership that they have these different skills throughout the department. They can't spend their entire career sitting in the SCIF or in the House Division or the Senate Division. You need to have a mandatory training. The department can come up with 4 years, 5 years, whatever. They can model after certain other federal agencies where you're given one dog And once that dog is retired, then you're moved out of that canine section and another individual will take your place and get that kind of training. So you're building your leaders as well because they have that knowledge, skills, and abilities.
The balance to that is not losing that institutional knowledge, right? So having a good framework, having a good program, moving people through to experience different skill sets while having that institutional knowledge to make the group run. Because the downside is if someone just walks into a system and it's a broken unit, that doesn't do them service as well. So I appreciate it. Thanks for the conversation, Director Bolton, and we look forward to continuing to read those reports. Yield back, Madam Chair.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Scanlon